Anger is nothing more than a weakness pretending to be a reaction. It locks you inside your own emotions and leaves you exposed. The ones who stay steady, untouched by provocation, aren't just calm, they hold real power. If you want to rise above the ordinary and move through life like a king, a queen, or a calculated strategist, you must learn the art of never being angered, never letting the words or actions of others disturb your inner ground. In this ruthless guide, we'll break down the principles of emotional control. The Machiavellian way. You may believe anger is strength, that shouting, tightening your fists, or erupting with rage shows dominance. No. It reveals the opposite. It shows someone discovered your buttons and pressed them with ease. It exposes your mind as reactive instead of strategic, your ego as fragile instead of fortified. In Machiavellian logic, the moment a man becomes angry, he has already lost. Anger is predictable, and whatever becomes predictable becomes easy to manipulate. The first rule of power is simple. Never let anyone know how to move you. People may not outsmart you, they may not outrank you, but they will always test you to see if they can influence your emotions. They'll provoke you, disrespect you, stall you, ignore you, all just to watch your reaction. Because once they learn how to trigger you, they learn how to control you. Machiavelli noted that rulers don't fall because of the sword. They fall because of their own impulsive mistakes. They speak too quickly. They punish too fast. They react with emotion instead of strategy. You must never allow yourself to slip into that same trap. Anger exposes you. It reveals your pride, your insecurity, your need to be acknowledged or respected. You might think you're defending yourself, but in truth, you're only proving exactly what your enemy suspected. That you can be provoked, that you can be disturbed, that you are weak enough to react. The man who cannot be provoked is the man they truly fear. The one who reacts every time is the one they quietly control. Think of it this way. The moment you get angry, you become predictable. And once you're predictable, you're exposed. That is why Machiavellians do not explode in rage. They calculate. They let others lose themselves in emotion while they stay cool, deliberate, and completely unmoved. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time anger actually helped you? Did it solve anything, or did it drain you and hand your power to someone else? The man who learns to command his emotions becomes untouchable. He moves through disrespect like it's nothing more than air. He stays calm even when everything around him is chaos. And that calmness shakes people far more deeply than any shout ever could. They expect you to crumble. Don't. They expect you to yell. Stay quiet. They expect you to react. Study instead. This is the kind of power Machiavelli requires from you. The discipline to remain untouchable when others try to twist your mind for their own amusement. When you refuse to get angry, you take away their reward. You rob them of the reaction they crave. You cut their influence off at the source. And here's the deeper truth. When you don't fall into anger, your vision becomes sharper. Anger is a thick fog. It hides strategy. It distorts judgment. But the person who stays composed sees the entire chessboard while everyone else is flipping it over in frustration. Train yourself. Identify the triggers people use on you, then destroy their effect. Turn your mind into a fortress nothing can breach. Make your ego invisible. Keep your emotions hidden, because real power belongs to the one who controls the room without ever raising his voice. The one who smirks at insults, who waits patiently when pushed, who strikes not from fury, but from perfect timing. That is what intimidates them most. a man who doesn't flinch, a man who doesn't erupt, a man who refuses to waste his energy on anger because he is too dangerous for that. You want real freedom? Then learn to stop caring. Not in the passive, weak sense of giving up, but in the cold, ruthless sense of strategic indifference. This is Machiavellian detachment, the level of control that unsettles manipulators to their core, because nothing is more dangerous than a person who truly does not care what you think, say, or do. When you stop caring, you stop bleeding, you stop reacting, you stop participating in their little games, and suddenly they lose all access to you. Understand this clearly. Most people survive on your attention. They thrive on your emotional responses like parasites. Whether they insult you, ignore you, flatter you, or betray you, it's all aimed toward one goal: to secure a place inside your mind. The moment you give them that space, you've surrendered power. Why do they try to irritate you? Because your irritation validates their significance. Your reaction proves they occupy your thoughts. Your anger becomes a trophy they proudly claim. So what must you do? You deny them that trophy? You deny them everything. Machiavelli would say, never waste energy on what is beneath you. And truthfully, most of what bothers you is beneath you. Petty insults, childish behavior, disrespect, all of it is bait, a trap, meant to lure you down from your throne. You must remain emotionally sovereign. Indifference is the highest punishment. You want revenge? Ignore them. You want power? Stay cold. You want respect? Don't even twitch. When people see they cannot shake you, cannot provoke you, cannot slip under your skin, something shifts. They grow uncomfortable, then uncertain, and eventually quiet, because they finally understand they hold no place in your perception. And this isn't limited to enemies. It applies to everyone: friends, family, lovers, co-workers, anyone who tries to toy with your emotions. If they realize your validation must be earned, that your peace cannot be disturbed, and that you're immune to their drama, they'll approach you with caution, even a kind of reverence. Let people earn your attention. Don't scatter it like a beggar spreading coins. This is how kings rule. This is how warriors stay calm before battle. This is how Machiavellians survive in a world drowning in emotional chaos. They don't react. They watch. They strike only when it matters. And never to prove a point, only to gain one. Because the man who doesn't care wins twice. He never suffers, and he never loses control. To master indifference, you must train your mind to ask one question before reacting to anything. Does this deserve my energy? If the answer is no, walk away. If the answer is yes, wait, plan, and respond with silence or precision. Never emotion. You don't need to prove you're right. You don't need to correct every fool. You don't need to bare your teeth when you're already the wolf. Stay unbothered, and you'll rise above the 90% who fall for every emotional trap tossed their way. And here's the paradox. When you stop caring, people begin to fear you. When you go quiet, your presence gets louder. When you become cold, calculated, and detached, they don't see emptiness. They see strength. That's Machiavellian indifference. Not caring, not because you feel nothing, but because you stand above the noise. If you want to punish someone, don't shout, don't justify yourself. Don't fight, disappear. Silence becomes your weapon. Absence becomes your battlefield. Machiavelli understood what most men never realize. Words are cheap. Presence is power. And the moment you pull that presence away, you create a void louder than any outburst could ever be. Why? Because people expect retaliation. They hunger for conflict. They wait to see you crack. But when you greet them with silence, you rob them of their ending. And what fills that silence? Their own paranoia, their own doubts, their own guilt. The deadliest move in any confrontation is the one they never expect. And silence does exactly that. It unsettles them. It forces them inward. It makes them question everything. Suddenly, they're no longer thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves now, wondering what they did to lose your presence. That's the cold elegance of withdrawal. You don't announce you're finished. You don't declare you're offended. You simply disappear with your power, your attention, your emotion. And now they are left to face the weight of your absence. Believe this, people cannot handle absence. The modern world is everyone wants to react, to shout, to vent, to be noticed. But the Machiavellian mind doesn't obey those rules. It doesn't scream. It starves. It doesn't add. It removes. That is real control. When you argue with fools, you become one. When you justify yourself to disrespect, you legitimize it. But when you pull yourself out entirely, you deliver the sharpest judgment. They are unworthy of your time, your energy, your attention. No ego survives that kind of punishment. And here's where most people fail. They think silence is weakness because they were trained to react, to defend, to explode. But you operate differently. You're strategic. You understand that sometimes the most ruthless strike is no response at all. Think of silence as a blade, clean, precise, and quiet. It cuts deep without chaos. And unlike anger, silence endures. Anger burns hot and dies quickly. Silence freezes everything and preserves your power. People will attempt to drag you back into conflict. They'll toss bait in the form of apologies, accusations, guilt, anything to draw out a reaction. Don't take it. If you choose to return, do so only after your absence has taught them the value of your presence. Silence is a teacher. Let it teach. And sometimes the greatest lesson is never returning at all, letting the silence become permanent, because not every insult merits a reply. Not every betrayal deserves a confrontation. Some deserve erasure. Remember this, you are not obligated to respond to anything, not to drama, not to provocation, not to disrespect, not even to praise. Your silence tells them exactly who holds the power. You. When you can walk away with your mind steady and your emotions frozen, you don't just win the argument, you win your freedom. No one owns your peace anymore. You don't need revenge. You don't need an audience. You don't need validation. All you need is silence. And through that silence, they hear everything they were never prepared for. So walk away. Let them talk. Let them speculate. Let them decay in the emptiness you left behind. That isn't weakness. That is warfare. That is Machiavellian punishment. Silent, sharp, absolute. You will never command your life until you command your mind. And your mind will never belong to you until it is stripped clean of emotional control. That is the essence of Machiavellian strength. The fortress mind, a mind that never trembles under pressure. A mind that refuses to kneel before insults, betrayal, chaos, or fear. A mind that stays cold, calculated, and unreachable no matter who or what stands before it. Let the world burn. Let the fools shout. Let the snakes crawl. You stay still, because emotion is the gate through which all enemies enter. It's how they twist you, how they steer you, how they break you from within without laying a finger on your skin. When someone disturbs you, what are they really doing? They are hijacking your focus. They are turning your mind into a battlefield and forcing you to fight yourself. Anger, irritation, envy, shame. These are not signs of strength or awareness. They are signs of vulnerability. Emotional people are predictable. They are easy to provoke. They make reckless choices. And worst of all, they reveal everything too soon. But a Machiavellian plays a different game. He transforms his mind into a fortress, not a wall of ignorance, but a precise weapon of strategy. He feels, yes, but he never lets emotion lead. He studies his feelings like a scientist, never like a servant. He never asks, how do I feel? He asks, what gives me the advantage? That is the only question that matters. If anger sharpens your power, use it. If it blinds you, eliminate it. Emotion must never command the man. The man must always command the emotion. Understand this. Being emotionless doesn't mean you're hollow. It means you're alive in the areas that actually matter. Clarity, precision, logic, timing. You don't react. You calculate. You don't lash out. You strike with intention. You don't complain. You build in silence. This is the mindset of conquerors, tacticians, and survivors who weren't the strongest or the loudest, but always the coldest when it mattered most. The fortress mind isn't created in a day. You craft it like a blade with daily discipline. Here's how. Dissect every reaction. When someone triggers a feeling, pause and ask, why does this affect me? Break it apart until the emotion has nothing left to hold on to. Delay your response. Time suffocates emotion. The longer you wait, the colder and clearer your mind becomes. Let impulse die before you move. Use logic as your armor. Always ask, does this action bring me closer to control or further from it? If it drags you away from control, you do nothing. Remember the mission. Never forget what you're building. Power, independence, legacy. No insult, no petty behavior, no disrespect is worth stepping off your throne. Detach from outcome. Emotion depends on expectation. Destroy expectation, and you destroy disappointment. Move like a shadow with a blade, without attachment. Once your mind becomes a fortress, nothing enters unless you permit it. Insults lose impact. Betrayal loses venom. Loss becomes instruction. And enemies become entertainment, because you no longer play on their ground. You've risen above it, watching, waiting, choosing your moment, not out of emotion, but out of strategy, out of benefit to your empire. People will call you cold. Good. Be cold. Ice does not bend. It breaks what touches it. Be cold. Be calculated. Be emotionally untouchable. That is how you remain unbothered. That is how you rise without noise. That is how you become untouchable, not just in power, but in mind. The fortress mind is your greatest defense. And once it is built, no one can ever live rent-free in your head again. You want to never feel anger again? Then here is the final lesson. Kill your ego. Because anger never comes from truth. It never comes from justice. It comes from ego, that fragile little voice inside you whispering, "They can't treat me like that. They can't talk to me that way. They need to know who I am." That voice isn't strength. It's weakness, dressed up as the moment you let someone's words, actions, or disrespect drag you into emotional chaos, you lose. Not because they're smarter, not because they're stronger, but because your ego convinced you that you had something to prove. You don't. The Machiavellian mind knows a deeper truth. Power does not react. Power allows. Sometimes it even pretends to lose, just to win in silence later. That is real domination. Not by barking louder, not by showing force, but by mastering the art of the invisible wind, the kind that costs you nothing, yet burns them from the inside. Here's how it works. When someone disrespects you, ego urges you to confront them. Power tells you to observe them, and strategy tells you to let them believe they've won. Why? Because most people are addicted to reaction. They want to see your ego ignite. They want to watch you defend yourself, argue, retaliate, because your reaction gives them power. But when you simply nod, smile, walk away, when you treat their insult as too small for your attention, too insignificant for your energy, you crush them without saying a word. Quietly, effectively, strategically. This is how emperors ruled. This is how Machiavelli advised kings to move. Not with emotional flair, but with cold, distant calculation. A lion doesn't roar every time a mouse squeaks. A king doesn't address every rumor whispered in the kingdom. And a true player of power doesn't lower himself to fight over crumbs. Here's what ego really wants: attention, validation, dominance. And the moment you deny those things, you take everything. Let them believe they hurt you. Let them believe they got away with it. Let them celebrate their tiny victory, because while they cheer on the surface, you are building beneath it, growing, preparing, waiting. That is the brilliance of letting them think they've won. You let them relax. You let them get sloppy. You let them walk straight into their own downfall, because you never showed your hand. While they waste energy chasing moments, you're capturing decades. While they argue, you build. While they insult, you evolve. While they shout your name in hate, you rise so far above them that their voices can't even reach your world. You don't need to prove anything. Your life will prove it. Your silence will prove it. Your results will shout louder than any comeback. That's what they hate most. Not that you didn't fight back, but that you never even considered them worthy of a battle. That is where true power lives. In indifference, in detachment, in releasing the need to be right, and focusing only on remaining undefeated. The weak crave to be heard. The strong prefer to be feared. Let them talk. You build. Let them win. You outlive. Let them laugh. You vanish and return as something they never expected. Because the ultimate revenge isn't revenge at all. It's thriving while they rot. It's peace while they drown in noise. It's victory without battle. So remember this: when someone tries to pull you into drama, you don't need to fight. You don't need to scream. You don't even need to correct them. You just need to be unshakable. Let them believe they've won while you keep moving. Let them celebrate illusions while you build realities. Let them project noise while you cultivate clarity. A person ruled by ego is fragile. A person ruled by purpose is unstoppable. When you detach from ego, You stop bleeding energy. You stop reacting to shadows. You stop validating people who haven't earned your attention. And that's when you become untouchable. Not because you're cold, but because you've learned what's worth your spirit and what isn't. But remember this part, the part most people ignore. Being unshakable isn't about war with others. It's about peace with yourself. Power rooted in insecurity collapses. Power rooted in clarity endures. If these words resonate with you, don't just share power. Use it wisely. Not to dominate, but to elevate. Not to destroy, but to outgrow. Not to wage war, but to master your own mind. Because in the real world, the minds that rise the highest